So, Mark, did you see that video of Elvis dancing at the airport? It was his 90th birthday, and Las Vegas went all out. He was at the airport. Westgate held a birthday party for him as well. He would have only been 90. That's kind of a surprise.
Yeah, that's what I found most surprising about all this. Like, you think about how long ago Elvis was big, and it just shows how young he passed away, and how sad that is that he would be like, you wouldn't think of that unless you really like put one and two together and add it up. But when you're like, oh, that was forever ago, way before our time. And it's like, oh crap, he'd be like younger than my grandma.
Of course, many people believe he's still alive.
And that there's aliens outside of Vegas in the desert.
There is. Have you seen the UFOs? Come on.
I saw that one really crappy hotel UFO. Yeah.
So there were a lot of strange social media posts this week, including one we'll talk about next show. But this show, let's talk about this Fontainebleau post comparing dresses at the Golden Globes to different venues inside the hotel. They deleted this post, but we have one picture saved from it with Zendaya. What was the motivation here? This is the strangest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, at first I'm like, do they have like cardboard cutouts that are like propped up in these rooms? So when you walk in, you see the dress. I didn't know like what was going on. I'm sure they got sued or threatened to be sued, that they were using people's pictures, and the Golden Globes for their own advertisement didn't have the rights to it or approval. So I'm guessing that's why I got taken down. Hopefully it was also because they realized it was one of the worst social media posts in the history of Vegas, which says a lot because Virgin's still out there doing their thing. But yeah, I don't know who runs these things, but some of it is so bad.
It was truly baffling. It's a post I read and I'm like, what is the point of this? Who thought of this? Crazy, but Fontainebleau, keep being Fontainebleau. It gets us to talk about it. So maybe it is good stuff.
It's no Four Queens, man. That shower. Woo.
Beautiful. So a couple years ago, John Mahaffey went around all of Southern Nevada going to all the casinos, but I don't think he got the world record because of some intricacies. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, this new guy is going to try to do this. 111 casinos in February. It's a couple from the Netherlands, Dominique and Armin, and they reached out. I talked to John about this. He says he gets requests like this all the time, people talking to him about doing this record, and says most of them are not serious. This guy's going to start in Laughlin, then fly with a helicopter to Prim, and then go through all the casinos. Mahaffey's a little skeptical. He would know better than anybody what the logistics of trying to do this are. But yeah, so look forward to that next month. They're going to try.
How do you get like a helicopter to approve to fly? I don't know. Is there a landing pad in Prim for it to go to? And then we have casinos closing, so that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. I guess you probably have to do it to hit the record. But it just seems like that'd be a flyover and just get into the greater Vegas area and hit that all up. But there's probably just not enough casinos to do it. But pretty crazy to put this time and investment. I'm sure there's going to be some type of streaming or YouTube video or something that they can make their money back. But that's a lot in 24 hours.
Yeah, I think the record says that you can't drive yourself, hence why they're doing that. So you have to get driven around. Yeah, it's a weird
That's such a
record,
stupid rule.
But apparently a lot of people want to break this record. I could see why. I mean, it's been interesting to me ever since he did it. Not that I would go out to try to do the official thing, but wishing them the best. And yeah, we'll follow along with that. Another public service announcement here, Mark. Don't give somebody your wallet at 5 a.m. in the casino. It's another one of these videos of somebody grabbing somebody's wallet. Seems like she was being propositioned in some way, and then she takes the wallet, and then they're running through Luxor trying to get it back. This is happening more and more, it seems like, in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and if you're at Luxor, like, don't be there at 5 a.m. I mean, why are you at Luxor? And if you're picking up a lady of the night at 5 a.m. at Luxor, it ain't going to end well. I don't know. It's just a whole lot of bad decision making in one video, but I love that he filmed him chasing her around the casino and she's asking for security while he's asking for security. Hey, I'm going to say the carpet looked great, brand new, very vibrant, kind of brings up the place. So if you take nothing else from this, at least the Luxor looks kind of nice in the video.
Stay in your lane, Mark. Stay in your lane. What are you doing talking about carpet? But yeah, I guess the only thing better than having this happen to you is if you can film it for social media and get some clout for the experience.
I guess maybe like that's why they do these things now, like do stupid decisions so that they can put it on social media. I don't know. How much money's in a wallet at 5 a.m. at Luxor, though? I mean, come on. What are you chasing around for $50? Couple $100?
So let's move over to Virgin. The strike continues. The union has been getting nasty with Virgin. There's some videos of the protesters being aggressive on the sidewalks. They're putting up signs and then Virgin's coming out and ripping them off the trees. They released this whole graphic that says all the crimes that have happened in Virgin, including 146 calls by Metro to the property in 2024. People with knives, guns, all this stuff. The union is getting dirty here. And this is not pleasant at all.
Yeah, I mean, if it's their property and you can't put something on the tree, I can't complain about them coming to rip it down. You can stand out front on the public areas and carry your signs and do your chants and all that stuff. But I don't know why you'd get mad if you're trying to staple things to their trees that they're going to come take them down or whatever. But yeah, it's getting negative. And I know we're going to talk about like Fontainebleau just signed their union contract. It's like, come on, like everybody else has signed it. Find somewhere in the middle there. I don't know who's being unreasonable here. I have to assume since everybody else has come to a deal that it must be on Virgin's end and maybe they just don't have the money. But I mean, Fontainebleau isn't going gangbusters down there, so it's not like they have a lot of profit to work with either. So I figure that you just, similar sized properties, all that independently owned, you'd kind of just base it off of whatever they did.
Yeah, this sort of reminds me of the 90s when I moved here to the Frontier. They were on strike. They just had gotten a whole new staff, and yet every single day the union was outside protesting. So I wonder, if this is going to turn into that, where it just goes on for years and years and years. I don't know. It's getting ugly. That video was intense, though, where they were taking down the signs and the protesters are screaming and they're screaming at cars. And yeah, this isn't good for Las Vegas.
No, and it's bad for, people that want to stay at the resort and everything like that. They have to deal with it. Like, they shouldn't be yelling at the Joe Public. Your beef is with Virgin. I guess they're probably mad that people are still staying there or whatever and not supporting it. But I'm guessing a lot of people are coming from out of town, have no clue that this is going on. And then they show up and they're like, what the heck? This is kind of crazy. So which way do you think it's going to go?
I think it's in everybody's best interest to settle this. I mean, at this point, who knows? The union doesn't want to give up. So you're basically at a standstill. So this could go on a long time, but it's bad for the employees who are on strike. It's bad. Some of the employees have crossed the picket line and are working, and it's just bad for everybody. So bad for the city. Hopefully they resolve it. So moving on to Dropicana, that's the project that's been going on seemingly for years, about 2.5 years at this point. It was supposed to end at the beginning of next year. They just announced that the cost overruns went from $305 to $385 million, and that the full project won't be done until the end of 2025, marking 3.5 years to rebuild a freeway bridge.
I'm kidding. When you say that, it sounds so stupid. But have we ever had a government contract come in under budget? I mean, are we surprised that it's over budget? I'd love once for them to be like, you know what? It's only going to be 300 million, not 305. But the best news I saw of all this is that they're going to get rid of the diamond, Sean. As soon as it's all done in like 18 years, they'll finally get rid of that.
That's the worst part, Mark. What are you talking about? Diverging diamonds are cool. Actually, it's going to go away in the next couple of months. So before the final project's done, sometime in the first few months of 2025, they will have the diverging diamond gone, but still work going on through the end of the year. It's nuts. I mean, 3.5 years. This is essentially just rebuilding a ramp, a bridge. It's nuts. And remember, they had to cancel a bunch of other freeway projects because they can't pay for them. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
3.5 years? Did they use the wrong concrete 5 times and have to break it up? I don't understand.
So this next thing I wanted to point out to you, we talked on an after show recently about the tram at Circus Circus. I think it was the first tram on the Strip, and it closed around 2000, and the track is still there. And we had talked about it, and you've obviously walked by there a million times and hadn't ever noticed the track there. 710 Suited, he was out there, and he happened to just be filming it, got some great footage. So I thought I would share it with everybody out there because they probably don't know about that. And then also that little crane there, that used to be the A.J. Hackett bungee in the 90s, 2000s. It's been abandoned for a while, but that used to be like a rocket to the moon attraction back in the 60s. It's nuts. It was called Strataflite, and it's just some quirky, interesting history in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Strata and then Stratosphere's down the road. That's kind of funny. But what's with Vegas and leaving old cranes and crap just there and not taking it down? Like, why isn't there no type of code that you have to remove a structure after 5 years if it's unused or something like that? And they'd probably game it and like move the crane once every 5 years or whatever. But why can't we make people dismantle these eyesores that just look like crap and they just let it sit there forever like it's a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere and they're just leaving the building to rot away?
I don't know, but I'd love to hear from anybody who did that bungee jump. I think they had this tiny pool at the bottom where you could do the water dip on the bungee jump, but it was such a small pool. I remember seeing it and being like, no way am I coming close to that. Like, oh yeah, it was a crazy thing, but yeah, it's just been sitting there. I should have looked this up, but I think it closed 20 years ago. As a reminder, we have our Patreon. $5 a month gets you access to our weekly after show, behind the channel, behind the scenes, our thoughts on Vegas, everything that we're doing. Patreon.com/MTM Vegas for all the information. And thanks to everybody who supports us over there. So talking about comments, we've been accused of being biased against EDM shows at the Sphere. And there's only been a couple of them. And Anyma was there over New Year's Eve. We're not biased against them. We were going to cover this anyway. Some of the visuals on that were incredible. They're coming back this week as well. But yeah, these might be it's hard. Every time I see visuals from inside there, I think they're my favorite. But they only had 1.5 months, according to a tweet I found, to put together all of these visuals. And that's pretty incredible.
I swear Sean didn't say enema. He's just got a cold.
Anyma, Anyma.
No, I thought this was the most inclusive or enthralling display that we've seen, especially the one where like the vines or whatever, I'm not sure exactly what it's supposed to be, but are like coming down from the ceiling and stuff. It kind of feels like it's 3D and in your face. And I think that they put on the best visuals that I've seen. And then I know we're going to talk about Lenny Kravitz in a minute, then you see his stuff. You're like, wow, that's really lazy.
Well, Lenny Kravitz was at the Sphere for a Delta event for their birthday or something for all their employees. So it was a private event. So they probably didn't have the time to put in the visuals. So it was sort of basic. There was a tweet from somebody saying that we could quote him and that Lenny Kravitz is going to do a residency at the Sphere. This is sort of the beginning of that. And I'm all for it. I love Lenny Kravitz. He's great.
Yeah, I think, it kind of fits in with what we've seen, the same era, a little bit younger, but still kind of similar era, rock, old school rock, that type of stuff. So I think that'd be a good fit. And, we've talked about how we need new people coming in and they should have it where every weekend something's going on, some type of concert venue. It's kind of surprising that they don't have that lined up yet. But yeah, I think the EDM knocked it out of the park. Definitely not my style of music, but I thought the visuals that they did were pretty insane.
Yeah, admittedly, I don't know a ton about the EDM scene and stuff, but it made me want to go. One last thing with the Sphere, they counted down the top 10 fan favorite exterior displays. And I guess we'll go through them really quick. Number 10, Welcome to Las Vegas. Number 9 was that Eyes Sphere of Fear. 8 was F1, boring. 7, Stars and Stripes. 6, the Snow Globe. 5, Rockettes. 4, Tiffany Stained Glass. That's personally my favorite of all of them. Then 3, the Dodgers World Series. 2, the Sphere and Coffee, which was really cool. And number 1, the Scary Pumpkin.
Scary Pumpkin's cool. I like Tiffany's a lot. I really like the one where the guy hit the golf ball, and I don't think it was meant to be like this, but it looked like he was like, oh, bad shot or whatever. For the Sphere, it was a basic thing, but just that fact that the video like lined up to when a guy was teeing off, that was probably my favorite video that came from all of this. But yeah, some definitely some cool stuff, and I think everybody would have their own different top 10 list.
I think that was cool though. That was one of the coolest videos from the Sphere. But yeah, they're coming up with new stuff all the time, and that's neat. And yeah, that Tiffany lamp, number 1. But let us know what your number 1 or what your favorite Sphere displays are. All right, so some quick news. I was at MGM Grand over yesterday at Wolfgang Puck, and I filmed it. It was full of people. Last week it was shut down with 42 demerits. Some nasty stuff going on in there, including ineffective pest control measures, food not protected from contamination, a lot of other stuff. I'll put a link if you want to read about it. But it reopened. It's there, and people are eating there. It's kind of full. The casino was dead, and there were still a lot of people in the restaurant.
I've eaten at a Wolfgang Puck restaurant, I think like 2 times. I've never really been like overly impressed with it. It just kind of seemed run of the mill. So I haven't been back in forever. But yeah, it just never was like something that I went out of my way for. It's kind of shocking that they would have this many issues. I mean, you don't really hear about that in most of the casino properties. They're probably all held to the same standard across the board, no matter whose names on the front of it and everything. So I'm a little bit surprised there, but hopefully they got it all figured out and nobody got too sick or anything like that.
Another like longtime Vegas attraction is closing, and it wouldn't seem like this is a big deal. It's the indoor skydiving over there off Convention Center Drive, kind of right behind the Pepper Mill. But this was the first indoor skydiving in the entire country, opened in 1982. I really didn't know that. Didn't realize it was so historic. They've had over 1 million flyers in 4 decades of business. I think this land is getting redeveloped as part of Siegel's Mall that he's going to build on that land behind Pepper Mill, separate from the project that's closer to Fontainebleau.
Yeah, and it's the longest running attraction in Vegas, right? Which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Sad that it's going, and maybe it's still a successful business. I'm guessing that it probably was, and they're just getting forced out, which makes it extra sad. It doesn't sound like they've looked anywhere else to move or anything like that. I never knew that it was so historic in the Vegas space.
Yeah, these things have exploded over the last 10 years or so, but to think 1982, well ahead of its time. And yeah, it's cool to kind of know the history. Sad that we're losing it. Another thing we lost a few years ago was Sam Boyd Stadium, because when Allegiant Stadium opened, UNLV had to sign a contract saying they would never use Sam Boyd again. And so there's been this sort of dispute on how to get rid of it. They want to give it back to the county because it has to be used for public use. The county said it was worth $0. The school said it was worth $10 million. They finally settled on a $5 million payment. We still don't know what's going to happen, but it'll probably turn into a park.
How do you say zero? Like, there's nothing in the world that's $0. There's no land anywhere that's $0.
Because of the deed restrictions, I think, because you can't develop it for anything but public use. So it's really not worth anything except to the government. So I can see why you appraise it that way, but UNLV's paid $500,000 a year since it closed just to maintain it, plus all the upgrades they did in the 2000s and stuff. So yeah, I mean, they're moving on. That's near the wetlands. It'd be great to open that up to more public space.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And, you know, they could use the $5 million to redevelop it if they're smart and they take care of it. I think that's a great option. And, you know, it's cool that the school's giving it back or getting out from under it, I guess. If they're spending $500,000, they probably, you know, are like, hey, take the $5 million. Please get it out of here.
One more tragedy. So many nasty things happening in Vegas, Mark. Main Street Station has apparently closed their elevator that goes up to the second floor, the snooker table, all the cool stuff up there. One of my favorite places to take people. I've taken you there, a lot of other people there, all that cool history in there. Why the heck are they closing this? Apparently they are going to reopen it at some point. It's just closed for a while. So I don't know. There's offices up there too, so they must have an alternative way to get up there.
This was just a Sean passion project. That's why it's in here.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest areas of Vegas. Go pee on the Berlin Wall, which you can still do. You can still go to the front desk and get the map of all the historic stuff. They have old street lamps and stained glass. And, you know, if you like old kind of vintage stuff, they have it all over, real historical stuff all over the casino. It's sad that this is closed, but there's still a lot of stuff that's not up there. I loved going up there, too, because you got a great view of the casino floor from the second story, which was also unique.
Yeah, I do like the view. That's kind of reminds me of like at the Trop where you'd go up to the second floor and see the ceiling and everything. Same type of vibes up there. And of course, cheapish beer. It's not as cheap as it was, but it's still pretty cheap for the area. So grab a beer, check out the stuff, walk down Fremont. Just don't do it at midnight with kids, please.
So we have to talk Durango, Mark. This week, they finally announced phase 2. They had gotten approval for it before, but they announced construction is starting, and a very interesting timeline, 12 months to complete it. And the reason for that is because they have cut back significantly. Essentially, all they're building is a new parking garage and more casino space, about 25,000 more square feet, including huge new high limit rooms. So you can see where their priorities are here. And then maybe eventually we'll get the bowling alley, movie theater, another hotel tower. All those things were previously approved for phase 2 and seemingly have been cut.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea to break it up a little bit more and do phase 2 in 2 phases, probably. The biggest thing they need is more gaming space because we've talked about how cramped it can be with the machines and everything. So I think this is perfect. More parking if you're going to have more gambling space because the parking lot is already a bit full at times. So I think this works well. I mean, I love that they're going to do it in 12 months when we see everything takes 3 to 4 years, it seems like now. So the fact that they can hammer this out hopefully in 12 months I think is great. It will add a lot to the property, and hopefully they space out the machines once they get more floor space to work with and it's not so cramped.
I don't think that's happening. Everything's going to high limit here. This is what it seems like. But basically, this new casino area is going to connect the new garage to the existing building. And then I assume the expansions of possible movie theater, bowling alley, more casino, hotel tower are going to have the backside connected to the backside of that new garage. It is weird to have 2 giant garages without any other huge expansion, but they will need that parking eventually.
Yeah, I think it's perfect to put it in now before you get to the bowling alley and everything else that will bring even more people in. At least you'll have the space set there. So get that done and, you know, have the infrastructure. They're one of the few people that are putting the infrastructure first, Sean, before the people.
Hey, good credit to them. Durango, we love it. Just move the machines further away. It's literally the only thing I don't like about the place.
Yeah, just take like 1 step back. Take every machine, take 1 step back, it'll be fine.
And let's look at the gaming numbers. They came in just before we recorded this, about a week, 2 weeks later than they should have. Some people were saying this was a conspiracy, but we now have the numbers for November to see if F1 was a success. I went back and looked at the statewide numbers, Clark County, the Strip, and downtown all the way through 2021. I will put those numbers up on the screen instead of like going through weird numbers here. And you can see that F1 was not a success. You can just see that it did not drive what they said it was, especially considering this year room rates were down about 20%.
Yeah, but I'm surprised the numbers weren't more off compared to last year. You know, we saw the room revenue and everything was down, what, like 20%. when we talked about it on the last show. So I figured gambling would be somewhere in that realm, maybe even worse. And it's quite a bit better, you know, down single digits, lower single digits. But it definitely is not anywhere near what we had expected, especially when you look at like 2021. And I know that was unique because it's coming out of COVID and everybody was just like going gangbusters. But still, it's on par with that. There was no F1 then. Kind of crazy when you think about it. But the really interesting part is that they wanted to focus on the non-luxury properties. Like they had a free concert, a free show downtown on Fremont to bring people down there. And it seems like it did. But when you compare them to last year, they're down, even though it was more of a focus this year. And they're trying to get the word out that, hey, come, you can still come to Fremont Street, hang out. So maybe free concerts don't bring gamblers, which isn't too surprising to me. It got people down there, but they weren't spending money at the tables or at the machines, stuff like that. But it's kind of sad to see, like, it felt like it was busy when we were there, and the fact that maybe they didn't bring enough of the whales back. They had more people, the visitor numbers were up, everything else was down. It just seems like next year it's going to be more of the same.
And the argument for saying that this giant event, with all of the bad stuff that goes with it, traffic, congestion, blocking the fountains, not being able to get around for a month at least before the race, weeks after, is that worth these numbers? I mean, it doesn't show a huge increase. Like you said, downtown, that's really sad. They went through a ton to put on that whole free event, and they're still down from last year, which was not great. And yeah, I mean, these numbers just don't, to me, show a bump for F1. It doesn't mean it's taking away maybe, but or maybe it's adding a marginal amount. But considering this weekend has been an open weekend with nothing, one of the slower weekends of the year, yeah, it's, I mean, I'd love for everybody to chime in. Are we wrong? Does this look good for F1? I don't see it, but maybe you do.
Yeah, and we really need to get a good picture of this, is like look at the month or two leading up to it. Has that dropped a bit from where it could have been? And even if you get a little bump on F1 weekend, did you lose more than that leading up to it? I have to think that you did. I mean, how many comments have we seen where people are like, I'm not going between these two dates because it's just too much craziness going on. It's not the same experience. So you're losing like 2 months, even if it's like a 5% drop for those 2 months, that's going to heavily outweigh whatever you're getting from F1.
And so I will end with a prediction that F1 will be done next year. I don't see, man, I mean, everything says that the big business wants to keep it, but nobody here wants to keep it. I don't know. We'll see. I'll put that out there. At the end of the day, I don't have a say in what happens, so I wish everything to be a success. I cheer for the city and for everything that goes on. I think we both do, and so we are just trying to say what our opinion is, but ultimately it'll play out how it plays out. And I don't think the LVCVA has done their job because conventions were down 8% in November as well. So the convention part of the convention authority, and I think Mick Akers pointed this out, is, you know, they're losing there too. So, you know, it's all, it doesn't seem like it's adding. It just seems like it's all washing out even.
I mean, the problem is it's the politicians that decide these things, and their money, their pockets will be lined with money from people that want to keep it in place. Even though the people, the people they're supposed to work for don't seem to want it. The locals don't want it. And a lot of visitors to Vegas don't want it. You know, F1 superfans do, but that's, you know, a small subset of all these people. It's just a question of what wheels get greased. Does that change things? I don't know. I don't know.
I'd love to hear what everybody out there thinks. We want F1 to be a success, so we will see, but just not a good fit for Vegas. Great event, awesome spectacle, not a good fit for Vegas. That's my opinion, but let us know yours. Also, let us know what you think about the Virgin strike, Fontainebleau's crazy post, Elvis's 90th birthday, everything else we discussed in this super long show. We do 2 shows a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. We'll be back with another show in a couple of days. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you next time.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Move F1 to the desert. Problem solved.